Hello there, everybody. This is ilja615, and I'm back with the iljaTech mod development. And I'm kicking things off here today where we left off in the last episode. So, with the flax crop that I added, and also with the brand new seed oil that comes from the squeezer. As I've shown before, there's also another fluid in the mod that is the creosote oil, which comes from these coke ovens. And in this episode of the mod, I'm going to continue with those two fluids in mind. So you might, of course, already be wondering what is the plan for today. And in today's episode, I'm going to be working on the carpentry system. So carpentry basically means doing stuff with wood. And there was already some carpentry in the mod. For example, you could make nailed planks, just like that. But there's also a saw in the mod which doesn't currently do anything useful except making nails. And in this episode, I'm gonna be changing that. So first of all, I also wanted the saw to be useful for making a decorative block. So this is what I came up with. Yeah, these are wooden frames. So now you can use the hammer to make the boards or the saw to make the frames. But it's a tech mod, so you're gonna wanna make a lot of stuff out of wood beyond just that. For example, wooden shafts or wooden conveyor belts like these, or of course the wooden windmill that is gonna come to the mod, which I was already teasing a bit in the last episode. This is where the mod's carpentry system will come into play, and where you're also gonna use oil to basically treat and finish the wood. Alright, so let's open it up and let's take a look at the UI screen of the carpentry. There used to be this old user interface, but I went through a ton of iterations like this one and this one and this one, and eventually I settled on this because it's more user friendly, I think. So right off the bat you can see that there's several slots and buttons, and some of these buttons are also red. So first of all we got here the hammer and the saw button, just like what you expect from a carpentry system, but the hammer is red because we haven't put in any nails yet. So let's just go ahead and put them in the indicated slot, and there you go, that fixes it. So this part on the left is the crafting grid, but this is also where you can hammer and saw your planks. So just like this, for example, if you press the hammer button you make nailed oak boards, and if you press the saw button you make oak frames. And as you can see, when you make frames, there's also a small chance for sawdust to accumulate around the carpentry table. And the sawdust can even pile up into bigger piles. So this is really something that you have to clean every so often. But this is not meant as just an annoyance, but much like some other quote-unquote waste products in the mod, for example, the ash from the fireboxes, the slag from the foundry, or the creosote oil from the coke ovens. If you combine it with the right technology, you are always going to be able to still use these waste products for something useful in the end. And it's also going to be like that with the sawdust. Now, once we get the frames and the boards, we can also craft stuff out of them. And as you can see, there's no recipe match at the moment, so only when we put in the correct items then we can craft something. So first let's craft some conveyor belts. It's made with one frame and one cloth, but the button is still red, and that's because now you need to put in the oil. So you can use either creosote oil or seed oil, that doesn't matter, and you just click them in here, two buckets. So there we have it, we get some conveyor belts. Now there's also other things we can craft. For example, with the blueprint and the wooden frame, we can make a research table. And and this research table is going to be related to the iljaTech guidebook. So this guidebook and research system are also going to help you and walk you through the mod step by step, and it's going to be necessary to unlock the new technologies in the mod. And I'll work on those parts of the mod, of course, in a future episode. So I also wanted to add these little chairs, as I thought it would be fun if you can really sit down at the research table when doing your research. Or of course you can use them for other things, like in your Minecraft house at the dinner table. And these will obviously also be made in the carpentry. What else can we make? The wooden shaft. This was added in episode 4, and this is used to transfer mechanical power in a straight line. We can also craft the bellows now. The bellows are used to stoke fires, and also fireboxes. We can also make the spinning frame. These were added last episode and are used to turn flax into fiber. And it will also be used to craft the windmill and a windmill related item called the wind vane. But the windmill will be quite large, so it doesn't make sense if you can craft the whole thing in the carpentry. So because of that, I thought it might be a good idea to make also a multi-block carpentry that is a bit bigger, and it would have a larger grid so that you could make bigger components. So the other option is that you would just use one carpentry table and you would make a small part of a windmill, or maybe one blade of the windmill, and then you would go in the normal crafting table and combine these parts to create the full windmill. But then of course these intermediate parts are kind of useless except for crafting the windmill, and they wouldn't do much on their own, so it would be a bit against my design philosophy. So far, I think the carpentry system is a nice central part of the early game of the mod, where it ties together a lot of aspects and it uses these to create other components of the mod. But I think for it to be really useful, there should be maybe 10 or more components that you can craft. So for the remainder of this episode, I want to discuss some of my future ideas so that you guys can tell me honestly what you think about them. First of all, we got the clay pipes. I think I could replace these with wooden pipes. This was already an idea at some point anyway. And now that I've added carpentry, I would really like to replace the clay pipes with wooden pipes. Another reason is that the player already gonna need a lot of clay for bricks, for example, for coke ovens. So if the player could use wood instead of clay, it would be much more of an early game friendly resource. Aside from that, another idea I had was adding barrels that can collect and store fluids. And also there could be some bulk item storage, kind of like the storage drawers mod or the storage barrels mod, as this might also be useful for a tech mod. So I hope you like this carpentry system that I added to the mod, and let me know what you think down in the comments. And also let me know if you have any ideas related to this, or generally any ideas for the mod. And if you never want to see any of these awful mod development videos anymore, then you definitely shouldn't subscribe to the channel. But otherwise, this has been ilja615, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.